Hey y'all, so as you can see, it's another beautiful day at the beach, and I wanted to share that with you all. So today we're going to dive back into chapter 12, and we're going to be reading the sections called the Spirit Bear, the Transformative Fire and Right Action, Righteous Rage. We're going to look over the story of the withered trees, and then we're going to talk about that story. So that's today's sections, and I just hope that you're excited. And I really enjoyed reading through this and making the notes. So I hope that you're going to join me, and let's dive in. So we're going to open with the Spirit Bear, and it's going to it's in reference to the story of the Crescent Moon Bear. So the symbolism of the bear. So let's take a look at that. It says, excuse me. What does the symbol of bear, as opposed to fox or badger or quetzal, teach us about dealing with the angry self? To the ancients, bear symbolized resurrection. The creature goes to sleep for a long time. Its heartbeat decreases to almost nothing. The male often impregnates the female right before hibernation, but miraculously, the egg and sperm do not unite right away. They float separately in her uterine broth until much later. Near the end of hibernation, the egg and sperm unite and cell division begins, so that the cubs will be born in the spring when the mother is awakening, just in time to care for and teach her new offspring. Not only by reason of awakening from hibernation as though from death, but much more so because the she-bear awakens with new young. This creature is a profound metaphor for our lives, for return and increase coming from something that seemed deadened. Yes, it's that life cycle again here in the theme of this story. So then she goes into talking about the bear being associated with different goddesses throughout different cultures. And it says, these goddesses bestowed upon women the power of tracking, knowing, digging out, she says, in quotes, the psychic aspects of all things. And so that was really cool to read. And like, for example, she says, to the Japanese, the bear is a symbol of loyalty, wisdom, and strength. And it says the crescent moon bear is considered a sacred being, one who was given the white mark on his throat by the Buddhist goddess Kuan Yin, whose emblem is a crescent moon. And then it says Kuan Yin is the goddess of deep compassion, and the bear is her emissary. So it talks about in the psyche that the bear is representative of our ability to regulate our life, and especially, she says, one's feeling life, so our emotions, It's like the bear in the story, if you recall, it's very intimidating. It has this capacity for destruction, which we're going to get into talking about rage pretty soon. So there's a strong correlation there, I feel like, So the bear has this ability to just tear this woman up that's climbing up the mountain. If it wanted to, it could easily attack her. Remember, it talked about the size comparison and how the bear looked down and saw these little human feet, but it chose to not do that. So it's about that our internal bear, and the fact that it's there. But we have the ability to be a good steward and to regulate and manage that aspect of ourselves. So our emotions, emotions are good. They're human. You don't want to suppress them. That's where you get into the danger zone, when you're just suppressing and ignoring emotions altogether. Then you're becoming like a robot, like a Stepford wife, like a narcissist, you know what I mean? And you never want to go there. But it takes strength, I feel like, to be able to withstand and stay with an emotion inside of you, instead of literally putting a wall up in our own mind to that emotion because we don't want to feel it. It takes strength to feel it, but also wisdom to contain it. And that's how I see it. So she says, The bear image teaches that it is possible to maintain a kind of pressure gauge for one's emotional life, and most especially that one can be fierce and generous at the same time. One can be reticent and valuable. One can protect one's territory, make one's boundaries clear, shake the sky if need be, yet be available, accessible, engendering all at the same time. The hair from the throat of the bear is a talisman, a way to remember what one has learned. As we see, it is invaluable. So, we can be the storm. You know what I mean? If need be, we can shake the skies, like she says. But it's that self-control that comes through practice. It takes effort to get there. Like I said, to not put a wall up and just pretend like everything's fine, but to truly embrace how we really feel, because emotions are God-given. You know what I mean? They're innate. So it takes strength to do that, and wisdom too, to get there. And I think that the more wisdom we get with how to embrace our emotions and regulate them, the more wisdom that we can apply, that we receive, we understand, we work with to understand, and that we apply into our life to regulate. It all works together, and it makes it easier. It does require strength, but I think that wisdom piece makes it easier. And I love how she talks about here at this last paragraph I just read, it's and, this and that, reticent and valuable. You can be fierce and generous at the same time. So it goes back to that whole divine paradox concept that I've read about before. I think I mentioned to you guys previously in another video. And it's for some reason, I feel like it's part of human nature to resort back to black and white thinking, to like an either-or mindset, and I don't feel like that's representative of real truth in our life. I think that, the both-and concept, the paradox, is more closely aligned with the truth. And so it's kind of like that whole science versus religion argument, when if you open your mind, again, you don't wall anything off. You humble yourself enough to say, I don't know everything. Then you can look at everything, from a fresh perspective. And you can start to actually see connections and parallels and synchronicities and say, well, wait a minute, maybe it's not either or, science or religion. Maybe it's both. You see what I'm saying? And you can start to see the parallels in a lot of things in life. And that, to me, that's probably a good way to describe the leaps and bounds that have happened in my growth journey, is where I've been able to see that it's not either or, it's both and a lot of things. So then we go into, I hope that was an interesting little tangent for you. Again, it's always my goal just to get the wheels turning. I never claim to know everything, because I don't. I'm just a student of life. So, hoping that that I can do my part to walk the path with you, and I so enjoy it. So, the next section is called the transformative fire and right action, and this is cool. So, she starts out talking about the bear showing compassion toward the woman, and how he allows her to pluck one of the hairs, And she's just so excited. She's running down to the healer down the mountain. She's just like zooming down that mountain, and she's, like, hey, I got this, I got it. Like it's a cure-all. She, in her mind, in our anxiety, like sometimes we can be anxious to just hurry up and fix everything and be done with it. You know what I mean? And so that's what that's representative of there. And it says, the woman's stunned because that the healer throws the hair that she worked so hard to get into the fire, and she says to the woman, practice what you have learned. So it says, in Zen, the moment the hair is thrown into the fire and the healer speaks her simple words, that is the moment of true enlightenment. Notice that enlightenment does not occur on the mountain. It occurs when, by burning the hair of the crescent moon bear, The projection of magical cure is dissolved. So that's an illusion. We all face this issue, for we all hope that if we work hard and have a high holy quest, we will come up with a substance, a material something or other that will flash, make everything orderly forever. Wouldn't that be nice? It says, but that's not the way it works. It works exactly the way it is rendered in the story. You know, it is what it is. We can't go against nature. We can't go against God's plan for our lives. That's just my 2 cents, my perspective. And I do think, well, we can. Let me back up. We can. You know, we have free will, but that's where I believe we suffer. And but we also learn. So it's like the silver lining, you know, in the dark cloud and the storm cloud. So it's that whole both and theme again. So it says we can all have, or we can have all the knowledge in the universe, and it comes down to one thing: practice. It comes down to going home and step by step implementing what we know as often as necessary and for as long as possible, or forever, whichever comes first. It is very reassuring to know that when one is in a burgeoning rage, one knows precisely and with the skill of a craftswoman what to do about it. Wait it out, release illusions, take it for a climb on the mountain, speak with it, respect it as a teacher. We are given many markers in this story, many ideas about coming to balance, making patience, giving the enraged one kindness and time to get over his rage through introspection and questing. And then this is really cool. She says there's an old Zen saying. It says, before Zen, mountains were mountains and trees were trees. During Zen, mountains were thrones of the spirits and trees were the voices of wisdom. You know, it's that magical time on the mountain where, you know, the layers of illusion are just peeling back and we're just learning more and more, and we just get so excited about it. And then it says, after Zen, mountains were mountains and trees were trees. So there's different ways to look at this, but I feel like it essentially means it comes full circle. You know what I mean? It's like she starts at the bottom of the mountain, she goes on the quest, she's hoping for a quick fix, and then she comes back. Where does she end up? At the beginning, at the start. So it says, while the woman was on the mountain learning, everything was magic. Now that she is off the mountain, the so-called magical hair has been burned in the fire that destroys illusion. And now it is time for after Zen. Life is supposed to become mundane again. Yet she has the bounty of her experience on the mountain. She has knowing. The energy that was bound up in rage can be used for other things. So it's kind of like it expands us. We have this new wisdom, this knowing. And I don't really know that it's wisdom so much as, I mean, it is, but it's not like, here's how I view it. It's not like we've been given all the answers. It's the fact that we've been given the wisdom to know that we don't have all the answers, and that we, in order to move forward in life, it is a step-by-step process where we have to stay aligned with that intuition for the guidance, you know, in our steps. Does that make sense? And so I think that goes right along with what she's saying. It's like if the hair was the cure-all, then it's kind of like we could just zoom right to the ending and it's like, bam, done. But what good is that? That's not the point of life. The point of life is the journey. It is the climb. You know what I mean? I think there was a song about that. It's the climb. Is it Miley Cyrus? I don't remember. But I think it was. But yes, it's about that. It's about the journey. And so I think sometimes if we shift our perspective on things and we come at things from a different viewpoint of gratitude, like she was constantly thankful going up the mountain, maybe that's, you know, all the difference in keeping life more on the magical side than the mundane side, you know, that gratitude. I feel like that's a key, you know, a big key somehow. And it keeps you humble, you know. So then she goes into talking about, you know, coming to terms with rage. and going back to your mundane life, but with new knowing. And it says, but now we can artfully live our life. It's not so much from a viewpoint of ignorance. So that's going to make a difference, especially in, the fact that we're not going to approach it from a viewpoint of victimhood, but more like a co-creator in our life. We understand that the role that we play in how we interact with our life to help manifest beautiful outcomes in our life and in the lives of others. So it says, now this is interesting. She says, yet one day in the future, a something, a look, a word, a tone of voice, a feeling of being patronized, unappreciated, or manipulated against one's will. So just, there's going to be all these tests along the path, all these challenges along our path. And it's not like we're just not going to be affected by them anymore. You know what I mean? She says that one of these will crop up again. Then, talking about the woman, her residue, or we could say our residue of pain, will catch fire. In other words, well, she goes into it. I'll let her say it. She says it best. She says, rage left over from old injuries can be compared to the trauma of a shrapnel wound. So even that, she says, the tiniest shards remain. So, you can't, I'm hoping my microphone's on. I think it is. That'd be bad. You can't get it all out. It's, in other words, you can't erase your past. You know what I mean? And it's going to change us. And I feel like it's our challenge to allow it to change us for the better. It could change us for the worse, and maybe it does for a while. But if we let that short while be our season of learning, then ultimately it can change us for the best. You see what I mean? That's how I see it. So it says there's irritants still left in the psyche that can never be fully excised. Or excised. Did I say that right? So in talking about the shrapnel that she says can never be fully excised, it says, my notes say we've got to abandon this illusion. You know what I mean? She says these cause a pain that is almost as intense as that of the original injury. So I hope that gives you some validation and comfort and permission, especially, to give yourself grace. That there's not a cure-all. There's going to be irritants left. There's going to be shrapnel, and so just expect that. And I think that it's that whole internal conflict. If we don't want it, if we're rejecting it, we're rejecting that emotion, and we're causing resistance within ourselves, which means we're just creating more pain and frustration for ourselves, which is unnecessary. So I say expect it. Expect to be triggered. You know what I mean? Expect these old wounds to get scratched here and there throughout life. If you expect it, then it's not going to be a shock, and I think we're going to handle it so much better. I think that you can heal, and I think that you can heal fully. You know what I mean? That's my belief. But it's just that you can't undo what you've been through. And I think that's the part that it's like, it's unrealistic to expect that you're never going to be affected by another human being again. I mean, that's just part of the human experience. That's how I would say that. So she says, if something gets to be too much for you, we can always withdraw and take solitude. It's like that going home, that place of peace, and so that we can deal with it a lot better, right? It says, shake out her rough. A woman who has climbed the mountain withdrawals, deals with the older event first, then the more recent event, decides her position, shakes out her ruff, puts up her ears, and goes back out to act with dignity. Yeah, exactly. Says none of us can entirely escape our history. We can certainly put it in the background, but it is there nevertheless. However, if you will do these things for yourself, you will bridge the rage, and eventually everything will calm down and be fine. Not perfect, but fine. You'll be able to move ahead. So, it says, a woman remembers that she can be both fierce and generous at the same time. Rage is not like a kidney stone. If you wait long enough, it'll pass. No. She says you must take right action. Yeah, exactly. Then it will pass. And more creation will come to your life. I totally believe that. And when you experience it, it just solidifies that belief, you know. So, I'm trying to read my notes and I can't read them. My handwriting. Yeah, we must acknowledge that we can't we must acknowledge what we can't change and act from there. Yeah. So it just means to you can't change the past. Focus on your present, on your future. Those are within your control. You know what I mean? So just stay focused there on the things you can control and the things that you want to focus on anyway. You know, we don't want to stay focused on the negative and on the bad. I mean, that's living in a state of victimhood, and we don't want to do that anyway. So then she goes into a section called Righteous Rage, and she's talking about how we can be amputated from the wild nature. Yeah, which is what happens with a manipulative person. You know, we abandon that part of ourselves, that intuition, the part that drives us to have the right actions. We abandon that for whatever reason. I think we think it's compassionate, but it's never healthy compassion if we're hurting ourselves. And so that's a paradigm shift, you know, that needs to take place. And so it says, then women are amputated from the wild nature, and their silence is not serenity, but an enormous defense against being harmed. So that's interesting. It says, there are times when it becomes imperative to release a rage that shakes the skies. Yeah. When women pay attention to the instinctual self, like the man in the following tale, they know when it's time. She's talking about time to release that rage. It says, this story is from the Mid-East. Versions of it are told by Sufis, Buddhists, and Hindus. It belongs to the category of story that treats of performing the forbidden or unsanctioned act in order to redeem life. This is a really kind of short but very interesting story. So we're going to dive into this. It's called The Withered Trees. It says, there was a soul whose very bad temper had cost him more wasted time and loss of good friends than any other element in his life. He approached an old wise man in rags and asked, how can I ever bring this demon of rage under control? The old man instructed the younger man to post himself at a parched oasis far off in the desert, and to sit there among all the withered trees, and to draw up the brackish water for any traveler who might venture there. And the man, trying to overcome his rage, rode out to the desert, to the place of the withered trees, for months, garbed in robes and burnous against the flying sand. He drew the sour water and gave it to all who approached. Years passed, and he suffered no more fits of temper. One day, a dark rider came to the dead oasis and gave a haughty glance down at the man who offered him water from a bowl. The rider scoffed at the clouded water, refused it, and began to ride on. The man offering water was immediately enraged, so much so he was blinded by it, and seizing the rider down from his camel, killed him on the spot. Oh, la! He was immediately grieved that he had been consumed by rage, and look what it had come to. Suddenly up rode another rider at great speed. The rider looked down upon the visage of the dead man and exclaimed, "Thank Allah! You have killed the man who was on his way to murder the king." And at that moment the cloudy water of the oasis turned clear and sweet, and the withered trees of the oasis blushed green and burst into joyous bloom. Honestly, it took me a little while to sit with this story. I saw the value in it immediately. I understood, but it's more meaningful than I think we realize. One thing is, we can look at the characters. We've learned now from the author that we can look at the characters in a story as different parts of one person's psyche, and the mechanisms, the way the psyche works, the way our minds work. And so that's one thing for you to think about here. And the other thing is, first of all, he declared himself healed. It says, years passed and he suffered no more fits of temper. Well, I don't know that he declared himself healed, but years and nothing, no anger, right? Until this one man comes along again, and it's like just an explosion out of him. And so that goes right along with what she was talking about, that we can't expect to just go throughout life and never be triggered again. But here's the funny thing. So he acts on it, and yet it turns out to be a good thing, according to the second writer. That I'm not promoting, obviously, murder or anything, but it's a story. It's symbolic, and she's even going to talk about that. So, but the point is, he acted on his gut, and then he doubted it, and he even punished himself for it, and it turned out to be like the right thing to do. You know what I mean? And so that's where that gap between our gut and our mind is. It's like our mind is lagging behind and the gut reacts first. So all these times when we've been triggered by the person, a narcissist, who is intentionally triggering us, all the times that we were triggered and then we beat ourselves up for it and we were embarrassed by it or whatever, the key is we weren't wrong. We weren't wrong to feel hurt. We should have felt hurt. It's just that maybe we needed the wisdom to know how to handle it and the experience to know how to handle it. Because then, and sometimes it took some of us years to figure things out, at some point we realized, oh yeah, we were right. We had a right to be hurt. We had a right to snap back. Because that person was mean. That person treated us horribly. You know what I mean? So that's the symbolism there that I feel like anyway. Because narcissists push our boundaries. That's what it's all about. It says, we understand this tale symbolically. It is not a tale about killing people. Exactly. It is a teaching about not unleashing anger indiscriminately, but at the right time. The tale begins when the man learns to give out water, life, even under drought conditions. To give out life is an innate impulse in most women. They are very good at it most of the time. However, there is also a time for the gust from the gut, a time for right anger, right rage. Many women are sensitive the way sand is sensitive to the wave, the way trees are sensitive to the quality of the air, the way a wolf can hear another creature step into her territory from over a mile away. The splendid gift of women so attuned is to see, hear, sense, receive, and transmit images and ideas and feelings with lightning speed. Most women can feel the slightest change in someone else's temperament, can read faces and bodies, this being called intuition. And I think we can all do that. We can learn, especially after going through these experiences, you start catching the micro expressions and what's it called? The duper's delight, you know what I mean? And these mean people, you start to see how they get joy from hurting us. You can just see that flash come across their face. I've seen it. It says, this being called intuition, so we can read faces and bodies, this being called intuition, and often from a plethora of tiny clues that coalesce to give her information, she knows what is on their minds. In order to use these wild gifts, women remain open to all things, but it is this very openness that leaves their boundaries vulnerable, thereby exposing them to injuries of spirit. Yes. I underlined that last sentence because it's so powerful for me. One of my really good friends, we were talking through some hard stuff. She's so insightful and such a deep person, and I value her input so much. We all need, someone like that in our life, But she said, you're so open. You're so open. And she meant it like in a bad way. And that's just it, this is it right here, where the author says it is this very openness that leaves our boundaries vulnerable, thereby exposing them to injuries of spirit. Yes, it's like walking around not being guarded, not having the armor of God on. And sometimes we have to know, like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, be explicit. Sometimes we need that. To know exactly how do you actually put on the armor, and that's part of the learning. It's part of that for me, a lot of it was shifting out of the mindset that I can't be both nice and compassionate and polite and boundaried up, walled up. I can't be both, but now that I'm expanded through my walk, I understand you can be both. There's people who are just hard, you know what I mean, and closed all the time, and that's not what I aspire to do. But I think you can find that balance again and be both. And when you can embrace that, then you're protected. You're keeping your energy pulled back in here, and that's a good place to be. Only to be shared with those that are aligned with you, that have earned your trust, right? So it says, like the man in the story, a woman may have the same issue to greater or lesser degrees. She may carry a form of scattershot rage that compels her to pick. This is interesting. Or use coldness like an anesthesia, or give out sweet words while meaning to punish or demean. She may force her own will on those who are dependent on her. Or she may threaten them with severance of friendship, of relationship, or affection. Some of you may be recognizing some of these things in your relationships that you've had with people. She may withhold praise, or even the giving of credit where credit is due, and in general act very instinct injured. It is a given that a person who treats others in this manner is under intensive attack in her own psyche by a demon who does exactly the same to her. So it says, sometimes we decide to embark on a cleanup campaign and not to be petty anymore, or to be nicer. And it says, we can get to a point where we avoid all confrontation, trying to feel better, but it's temporary. It's not going to last. The learning we are after is to know when to allow right anger and when not. Exactly. It's not about striving for gentle sainthood. It is about knowing when to act in an integral and wild manner. So again, we're integrating these lessons into our psyche, into our mind. We're integrating this stuff so that it can be applied and we can have better outcomes in our life. She talks about wolves again, enforcing territories and how they can explode in their own powerful way. And I'm going to read the last part of this section to you. It says, there has been much speculation that an angry woman is awesome in her power to cause fear and trembling in those around her. But that is far too much projection of the viewer's personal angst for any woman to justly carry. In her instinctual psyche, a woman has the power, when provoked, to be angry in a mindful way, and that is powerful. Anger is one of her innate ways to begin to reach out to create and preserve the balances that she holds dear, all that she truly loves. It is both her right and at certain times and in certain circumstances a moral duty. For women, this means there is a time to reveal your incisors, like a wolf, right? Your powerful ability to defend territory, to say this far and no farther. The buck stops here. And hold on to your hat. I've got something to say. This is definitely going to change. Like the man in the beginning of the withered trees, and like the warrior in the crescent moon bear, many women often have within them a tired out and battle fatigued soldier who just doesn't want to hear it anymore, doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to deal with it. A parched oasis in the psyche rises up because of this. This is, without or within, always an area of great silence, just waiting for, just begging for a roaring to take place, a breaking, shattering, shaking something that will create life again. Yes, because you can't create more life from a place of deadness like the bear in hibernation. You've got to, shake it up inside. You've got to be strong enough to embrace it all. The man in the story is initially taken aback by his deed of killing the rider. Yet, when he understands that, in that instance, first thought, right thought, applied, he is released from the too simple rule of never be angry. Yes. As in the crescent moon bear, enlightenment does not occur during the deed itself. It occurs once illusion is destroyed and one gains insight into the underlying meaning. Yes. So, whatever path you take, I feel like there are fundamental truths to healing and growing that are going to be found in all the paths. And that's what's beautiful. And that's the kind of stuff we can focus on to unite us. You know what I mean? To dissolve this division that, we've just accepted as the way to go and, a good way of life. I believe in unity, and I just think that if we can find that, like I said, the fundamental truths, we're going to be so much better off in our approach to life. So I hope that this has inspired you. I really enjoyed reading that and sharing it with you, and I'm so grateful for you all and walking this path with me. And so thank you very much, and I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I will see you again very soon.